ultimately you want to make a difference. Whatever the goal is with any given project, you want to make a change. And change requires push, not apathy.
Here's the key to my front door. You got a pillow if you lost yours. You got a seat at my table. You got a here's somebody who believes you. Let truth remind you. You've always got a place to go to. You got a home.
Welcome to The Creator's Journey. I'm your host, Charles Gupton. Fears and obstacles on the journey of creation are things we all face. Every creator who works from the heart faces the same challenges. You are not alone. In each episode, I talk with creative leaders about the mindsets and processes they use to push through their struggles to create and put their work out into the world in order to make a difference. If creating an impact is something you're struggling to achieve at this point in your life, and you believe the encouragement and feedback of a trusted group of creative leaders could make a difference in your growth, I have a solution. I'm leading 2 Impact Accelerator mastermind groups to help a select number of creative leaders achieve objectives that are simply not possible working alone. If you're interested in building a new body of work based on renewed creative energy and deep encouragement to grow, please let me help you do that. Contact me at charlesgupton.com. And thanks for joining me on this journey.
Here's the key to my front door. Got a pillow if you lost yours. You got a seat at my table. You got a home. Here's somebody who believes you. Let truth remind you. You've always got a place to go to. You got a home.
As the content director and executive producer at Core Creative in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Andrea Nordgren is foremost a storyteller with a desire to inspire people through the work she creates. Andrea wrote her first script in 5th grade and spent her teenage years drawing and painting until starting out her career as a graphic designer, way back when Macs were still black and white. Besides taking a 5-year hiatus to work as a drug and alcohol addiction counselor in both New York and Chicago, she has spent 27 years in advertising, on the client as well as the agency side, all with a focus on visual storytelling. An experienced producer and director, she has worked on numerous award-winning TV spots, videos, and documentaries for a variety of clients and causes. In addition to her work at Core Creative, she also owns an indie film production company called Heroine, which is dedicated to telling social justice stories. Welcome, Andrea. It's a delight to finally get together and talk.
Thank you. I am glad to talk to you as well.
Well, at the heart of everything you do lies a storyteller. Talk with me about your work and how you view the story process within that framework.
Sure. Well, we do a variety of different kinds of work, both narrative and doc style, and I really tend to lean towards loving the documentary stuff because it's kind of telling a true story and not necessarily creating one from the get-go, but telling someone's true story, and that to me is fascinating. It is. It's an honor, and it's such an interesting process. You know, as you go into it and get to know people and get to know what is the existing story and how should we tell it, it's like, you know, the proverbial peeling away an onion, and you don't know what you're going to find. And I think that's really cool for the creative process, is that it's not all directed and scripted. It is not all within your control, but you're part of the process right there in it. It's pretty exciting.
Well, from looking at your work, you use a lot of those true stories or the documentary type story in a lot of the branding work you do. Can you tell a story or two about a business that you witnessed being transformed by understanding their personal brand story on a deeper level?
Sure. One of the nonprofit clients we work with, we actually do quite a bit of pro bono stuff. And this is prevalent with many clients, is they have such a great story, but they're just not telling it. And it lies with their customers and sometimes with their employees. So we go in and work with them to understand what that is and to bring it out and really share the brand story and the brand values through the people that live it. How their clients or customers live out that brand, and how oftentimes their employees live out that brand, and sometimes the interaction between the two. Recently, we worked with an organization called Broadscope. We actually rebranded them from their previous name because they were serving a larger group of people than their previous name indicated. And so we worked on some rebranding with them, which included logo and some positioning. But also, how do we get their story out? They basically serve people throughout the region with disabilities. And we decided what better way than to just show their brand through the people they serve. So we identified a selection of their clients, reached out to them to see if they would be interested, and worked with them on what that story would look like, what we might film, what we might talk with them about, what they felt comfortable with. And as that sort of shaped itself, we went ahead into producing 4 of those stories. And that was shown. It's something that they can obviously use on their website and social, but it was shown at an event. And it doesn't sound like, earth-changing stuff, but really it's something that they never had before. The nonprofits can't always afford a big marketing plan and a lot of content development. So when you are able to do something like that, it can really have a lot of impact throughout the organization and throughout the community that they serve, because it's such an important piece of their story, and now they're able to share it.
Yeah, I saw a few of those pieces, and they're just beautifully done, incredibly engaging as well.
Thank you.
What kind of difference do you find when you do projects such as that in terms of the impact that it has on the narrative internally, the people who actually work with the agency, in addition to people in the outside who may not know the story? Do you find that it helps change the internal narrative of the agency or the people working with it?
Yes, actually, I just wrote a blog on that that's supposed to be published today. From the people that work with the organizations or our clients and such. What I think happens is, as you probably heard, our brains are wired for storytelling, and I think that's true. I think that's the way we want to connect, and whether that's connecting with people or connecting with brands. We're okay connecting with brands if we feel like that connection is authentic and useful. And but we don't want to be marketed to. We don't want to just be advertised to or marketed to if it doesn't entertain us or give us useful information or connect with us on a level that matters to us. So what I think we find with these organizations is that these stories are real, and the work that they're doing is real and making a difference in people's lives. And people yearn for that. They want that. So whether the audience is, family members that are looking for those types of services for their loved ones, or people who are looking for disability services themselves, or partner organizations, the community, et cetera, when they see work that reflects the organization's impact, they connect with that. And that either serves to make them, oh, I didn't know your organization existed, so they're more aware, or, wow, I didn't know your organization made such an impact. How can we work together? Or maybe I should work with you. So I think to me, it's just a great way to connect to people, really. From a team standpoint, I think what we find is it really transforms us. I've interviewed hundreds of people over the years, and it's got to be difficult to be in their shoes, to open up to, somewhat of a stranger and tell their life story. And, oftentimes we're bringing crews into their homes, and that's hard work, but they trust us to do that. And that's a great honor. Really, to me, the greatest honor in the world is to tell somebody a story like that they trusted you to do that, and you need to honor that throughout the process.
Absolutely.
So that in turn totally transforms us, because we've shared really powerful moments with these people, and our team takes that really seriously. It's important to us, and people's stories and people stick with us long after we, leave their town or complete a project. They're in our hearts for sure.
A lot of that trust is built just in those first connections when you've come in and you've made the initial contact and talk with them. That trust is extended to everybody else on the crew, and again, it's such an honor. And it's so easy to break that by not having the kind of the right team or the people who do honor it.
Definitely. We approach that pretty strategically, and it's not like we have to remind ourselves to be respectful, but it's just sort of there. That's just how we work. And it's certainly in the partners and crew and such that we select. So we're pretty hands-on. We don't have a lot of layers. So we work directly with people who we might interview. We're on the phone with them from the very beginning, and we're working with them as we complete the project. So it's nice to be able to have that personal really to develop a personal relationship with somebody that's outside of just a day-long shoot, for instance.
Along those lines, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the importance of message alignment. A number of years ago, I was shooting photographs for a large banking client and had several senior level employees offhandedly tell me that the focus of the bank's advertising didn't even remotely align with the reality of how they were instructed to handle customers' accounts and needs. And I've seen and heard kind of a similar story with different clients through the years. How important do you see the alignment of messaging, of what employees know to be true behind the curtain versus what the customers actually experience?
I don't know how I could use the superlative to say how important that is, because actually that's how that's the entire foundation of Core Creative. We call that say it, live it, share it, and what that is total brand alignment. So we don't focus specifically on what we're saying, the advertising message, the outgoing message. We also focus on aligning that with the internal messaging and how the employees live out the brand. And true brand alignment comes when all of that is together. You can't have a really horrible culture that isn't living, the brand values that you extend to the outside world. So we're in that stuff every day.
Well, that's why I asked the question, because it seems like, at least as I talk with some folks, that they struggle with that when they're trying to do messaging for a client, and in their guts they know, or in their hearts they know, that this isn't really what's happening internally in many ways. And it seems that struggle is a great energy drainer for creative people who have a lot of integrity or a lot of idealism in the work they do. So I don't know if that's something you've ever run into that created any internal struggle for you as you were working.
Yeah, I think, I've been lucky enough to either walk away from things that don't, feel good or have an ethical consideration. But I think the issue that you're getting at there is really why we hear so much about experience, customer experience, employee experience. That's the truth, and it will come out regardless of whatever marketing message or what you want to pack on the outside. The experience of working with a brand or a company, people will know the truth, and that's, I think, where you need to start. You can't start with a marketing campaign if you don't take care of your house inside.
Clients or customers are going to know the truth, and it seems that once they learn the truth, that the truth sets them free from working with that particular business.
Yeah.
There seems to be a misconception, even among a lot of creative people, that the important element of success is in just simply having a great idea. But it seems to me that after the idea pops out of the womb, it's got a lot of development, a lot of growth. It's got to be sold, defended. So many things have to be done with that idea before it ever comes to fruition. As a creative leader, what are the mindsets that you have around getting great ideas out of gestation and actually into the world so that they can work every day for a paying client?
There's this balance between understanding, yes, there's an idea, there's the creative, and that might feel very, very pure and the right thing, with the understanding that we are in a business of creative solutions and we are serving clients who are paying us for those creative solutions. And how do you maintain integrity in both of those worlds simultaneously throughout the process until delivery, or on an ongoing basis? And I think what I think helps with that is really good strategic planning up front, solid creative strategy and insight. And if you have that and you have a brief like that guides you, that you agree upon with your client, that helps maintain that thread throughout the process. When you don't start well, when you're either off base or not in agreement, that doesn't serve you later. That's when other things come in, whether it is client stakeholders, taking things perhaps down a road that maybe not everybody agrees on, or the creative team feeling like, no, this is the right creative, but they might not be fully in touch with the target audience and the call to action, the thing that we're trying to do. So I really do think good, solid planning, like I said, and insights and a brief that guides everybody on that team is the way to success.
How much of your life is spent negotiating for what you want to achieve or to get out of a process? I mean, what can you offer up for others out of what you've learned on how to get your ideas out into the world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it comes to negotiating, getting great ideas out there, I think that really happens all over the place. It happens throughout the process and with many, many different people, and sometimes just with yourself.
Right.
I think there are again, like I said, if you're starting with a brief that guides you, I think that is a huge help. And also, it's really important, I think, to keep yourself in touch with the outside world so that you don't get stagnant in your work and stop bringing those ideas that might push or scare people. That's each one of our own responsibilities as creatives to stay on top of that. Because once you stop doing that, it's not really a creative process anymore, I don't think. You're just maybe phoning it in. I don't know. But I think pushing, and there's in that tension, that natural tension that happens with creative and account, or agency and client, that's there, and that's our job to push on that. And to take something, if we believe in it, if it's aligned with what we're trying to do, who we're trying to talk to, what they need, and what the brand needs, that intersection, then that's our responsibility to push on that. So those negotiations, I think, are sort of constant, kind of an ebb and flow. I don't think they're negative. I think they're just sort of a healthy tension of what can we do here? Because ultimately, you want to make a difference. Whatever the goal is with any given project, you want to make a change. And change requires push, not apathy.
I've not found many people who are comfortable with change, even though we all like to say we're growing and like growth, but growth requires change. And any kind of pushing, whether it's with branding or trying new things, usually has a pushback, it seems to me. Mm-hmm. So again, I agree with you. Negotiation is part of daily life. It's just part of moving and advancing great things into the world, rather than just staying status quo.
Yeah, and it's okay to be uncomfortable. I mean, I think that quote, whatever, do something that makes you uncomfortable every day, that's a good one.
It's a good place to be, but it doesn't feel very good in the moment.
No, not always.
Well, I want to get a little bit more back into staying in touch staying in touch with the world that you mentioned a moment ago. You worked as a drug and alcohol addiction counselor for a while. What caused that change of career direction, and what are some of the life lessons you gained from that time that have impacted your work since?
Sure. So when I was in college, I was an art major without any clue how I would support myself, but I also had done a lot of volunteer work and really, just interested in helping people. So I decided to combine a psychology degree and a communications degree and sort of cover my bases in case I needed to work, in an industry or two industries. And actually, that's exactly what I ended up doing. So after college, I spent a year, actually it was sort of a volunteer work, kind of like the Peace Corps, but only 1 year, and it was domestic, at a drug and alcohol rehab in upstate New York. So just happened to be placed there and to learn about what that world was. And when I came back, I decided to continue on with that and be certified. So I worked for 5 years after that in the Chicago area within, like I said, alcohol rehab as well as drug and a methadone clinic. And after that, I decided, I had my son and I needed some different hours and such. So I went back into design and have been in design and advertising ever since. However, I miss my clients, and I think what I gained there was just a real respect for every person's journey. Everybody has a story and a ton of pain, and the human connection and the ability to be there for somebody and help in some small way. Sometimes you don't even know if you made a difference until much, much later. Again, it's just a real honor. And I wouldn't have changed the past for anything. I'm glad that I did that. It's definitely created or at least sustain a lot of empathy in me. I think I guess I wouldn't say created it because I think it was there before, but you can't not be empathetic when you have a deep understanding of how intricate our lives are and how much pain and joy and just what everyone experiences is just right there, and it's been shared with you. And I don't know, it was really special to me. So it's definitely made me a good interviewer, I think, when I work with people, and I'm glad, that I have those skills to be able to connect with people because I care about them very much. So,
well, that's apparent in all of the work that I have seen that you've done. There's an incredible connection with each of the people in terms of a sense of trust and connection that's there. Do you handle most of the interviews yourself when you're in the pieces that you do?
At Core, we split them up. We have a great team that are very good at interviewing. So there are, I think, probably 3 of us that handle that. And then in my own work, obviously I do that. So we're pretty flexible.
Well, as I said, the connection, which I recognize a lot because I can tell, through my own work, when somebody has a connection with somebody and when they're just, as you said, phoning it in, even if they're in person, it just feels very dry at times. And other times, I feel like I'm right there with them. And in all of the pieces that I've seen that you've done, there's an incredibly deep connection with people, which resonates as a viewer.
Thank you. I'm really glad to work with the team of people that we have here. It's pretty special.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
When your role as a creative professional transitioned from being a graphic designer to a creative director, were there any revelations that occurred that surprised you in any way?
I think being a really good communicator, because I think you need to be able to inspire and foster creativity in others. And that doesn't mean that you are taking the wheel. It doesn't mean that you're doing the work, but you are nurturing the work through others and not, kind of owning and controlling it all. It's collaborative. So I think that's really, I don't know, that excites me. I love working with other people, so that's cool.
Are there any lessons that you have learned as a creative director that you wish you'd known before rising up into a management position that you can share to smooth the path for others that are moving up into responsibility and leadership roles?
Oh my, probably so many. Where do you start? I think that's such a great question. Listening and being open. I really believe that all people are creative, but a lot of people don't believe they are. They think they're a creative people and they're not creative people. I think that that all the humans are creative, but not all of us are actively creating.
Right.
And I think keeping that in mind is really important, and not having so much sense of maybe ownership or territorialism, if that's even a word, I don't know. But that it's more about the work, not about you. It would be a good piece of advice, I guess, and just respecting what everybody brings to it. I am a big proponent of diversity makes creative better.
Right.
So I think different kinds of people with different points of view is really, really exciting in the creative process.
Talk with me a little bit about how your day plays out. How do you manage your energy and focus while shifting between the various roles within the scope of your day?
Yeah, that's a good one. I have a very fluid day, I would say, because we do a lot of different things and I have a lot of different focuses. So on any given day, I could be working on creative strategy or content strategy. I could be working on a concepting session, or meeting with a team member, having a one-on-one. I could be interviewing people over the phone, preparing to film them. I could be resourcing crew, which really involves a lot of texting. So I spend a lot of time on my phone texting and calling people.
Right.
So it volleys quite a bit through the creative space, through the production space, strategy. It's kind of all over the place. If you drew it, it would probably look like a big giant scribble.
Yeah, most people think success is a straight line versus the squiggly, squirrely line of any given day or project.
Right.
Are there practices that you try to honor each day that keep you balanced and creatively refreshed so that you can be the most productive?
Yeah, there's a couple. I actually just read a great article on I think it was on Magenta. Hans Newbert, which is Huge's chief creative officer. He had a great quote that said, "The more organized I am, the more freedom I have to be creative." And not everybody feels that way, but I do. I feel like the more organized I am in my life, work life and home life, I've got this structure that allows so much more freedom and deviation from the norm. So that's the way I like to work. I write a lot of lists. I write lists every day of stuff I need to accomplish. And getting tasks done and minding my list gives me this wonderful time in which, I can let my mind wander. And I like to do that through like mowing my lawn or running or something like that, just to daydream, really. It's a lot of daydreaming.
What other ways do you find that you keep yourself kind of out from the advertising world, if you will, or the communications world to keep yourself fresh? Anything else that comes to mind?
I love to travel. I think by traveling, you get to meet people and experience places, eat new food, see new art, just everything. I that's one of my favorite things to do. I think that's an incredibly stimulating and energizing thing, and always makes me inspired by the things that I see or the people I meet or textures or all of that. That's a good one for me personally. I can't always travel, so in the sort of interim solution, I guess, is I just like to get involved with a lot of stuff. I'm on the internet. I'm looking up articles. I'm um, trying to, look at books and films and just expose myself to as much as I can from a visual standpoint. I think the visual stuff is the most inspiring for me. Although I do like to read a lot. I read a lot of books. So
Talk with me about books. I always want to find out what people are reading. Are there a couple of books that either you're reading or that you've read recently that have had a big impact on you?
Sure. One of the most recent ones is Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a great read. I think she's really funny and smart. But it was a good one for me because it's about writing. And being a graphic designer by trade and really visual storyteller, that's a good muscle for me to flex, is to practice writing and to not be afraid of that or afraid of the block that comes when I try to write. So I really loved that book. It was one that you don't just read and think, hey, that's a great idea. It was one that actually got me to start doing something. So I appreciate that. And then I am a fan, too, of these aren't the same kind of books, but Damn Good Advice by George Lois, and Whatever You Think the Opposite by Paul Arden. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but they're small books chunked into little pieces of advice and pieces of art. And I think they're meant for our industry, for sure, the advertising industry. They're just some great nuggets in there that are reset you or sort of level set you in your beliefs and remind you to remember these things. So some really good advice in those.
I've not read the second two, but the first one, Bird by Bird, has had a huge impact on my thinking practically on a daily basis, not so much for writing as much as just general work, because I get overwhelmed incredibly easy, it seems, by just too many projects or too many things going on. And I frequently just catch myself going, I don't know how I'm going to get this done. And then I remember bird by bird, just take the next one, do it, and then move to the next piece or element. So that counsel has gone a long way with me through the years. A great book.
Yeah, definitely. Love it.
But I'll note the other two as well.
Yeah, they're good.
Often there are particular projects in a career that become turning points for one reason or another and can have a huge impact on processes. I've had a few that seem like they were nightmares at the time, but proved to be blessings in shifting my mindset and the client work that I did. Are there a couple of projects that you can think of that made a difference in how you work and how they may have changed you?
Yeah, I probably would answer that with almost every project changes the way I work, and I say that only because I know that sounds a little shifty, but to the degree, especially in video production, I think so much can go wrong, and you're mitigating risk, and there's always something like, maybe you didn't predict that, but you just never know. And you learn something all the time. I think if you leave yourself open, you learn something on every single project. So even if it wasn't a nightmare, it gives you insight into, hey, we could think about that, or hey, we could do this differently. So it's not monumental shift or change, but it is just sort of a constant refining and sort of adding tools in your toolbox.
Can you think of any that were, if not nightmares, that just had some huge life or learning lesson in them that made you just shift and say, wow, I won't do that way again, or this one will, from this point forward, we will always do whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had a lot of nightmare projects. Hopefully I'm not the only one, but
I don't think so.
Who wants to say that? Hey, I have a lot of nightmare projects. No, I mean, when you work in the industry for this long, you're bound to have stuff like that. And I think really there's just countless things from something as small as, my gosh, save early, save often, back up your work,
Ouch.
to make sure that you have a good audio person. If audio is important, don't just assume that someone else will do that. Just it's all over the place. I think there's so many lessons we learn all the time, and luckily you internalize them and move on, and don't make the mistake twice.
We hope. You had mentioned something in passing a little earlier that I want to come back to. What are some fears that you may be struggling with right now? Anything to do with your struggle or fear that you have to face or deal with in your work?
Oh, definitely. I have a fear of, wow, I'm not very creative. And I think that's because sometimes it comes and goes. I personally experience that, where there's periods where, boy, I'm just not coming up with stuff, and I'm much more effective in a producer role, or get stuff done right now. And then other times there's just a flow of intense creativity, and so I think the ebb and flow there, that you don't necessarily feel like you have control over, is can be a little unnerving. And I think there's the age-old creatives fear that they will be found out to be a fraud. That probably exists in everybody to some degree.
Absolutely.
We've heard that, and I think it's just such an interesting one. That we're all so fragile. I think, I also fear that I don't want to get so wrapped up in the work, and forget the people. It's important to remember that I love to see people learn and grow and live up to their potential, and get opportunities to do new stuff. And I don't ever want myself or anybody to think that they are in a factory, and produce stuff. So making sure that we are always cognizant of the process itself and not just the product, I think, is important.
Absolutely. Have you heard of the book called Shut Your Monkey? How to Control Your Inner Critic and Get More Done?
I don't think so, no. Shut Your Monkey.
It's by Danny Gregory, who has been in advertising for many, many years. And it's just, to me, it's funny as I talk with people how many creatives are struggling with that voice that all through their process seems to be just screaming at them at times that they're imposters or their ideas aren't good, and all of the almost crippling weight that comes with that, I guess, imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So it's always at least interesting to me to draw that out and have people acknowledge their own battles with it as well.
Yeah, it's really true. I'll have to read that book, because I definitely see it. I mean, not just from my own experience, but in others, it's quite a phenomenon.
Yes, it's certainly prevalent. How much do you invest your production skills into community events or causes such as A Night to Remember?
Oh.
And what are some of the takeaways that you've received as a result of the time that you've invested in doing these events? Sure.
Yeah. A Night to Remember prom is a prom put on by several communities in the southeast Wisconsin area for special needs people aged 15 to 24, so teens and young adults, and everything is donated. They get prom dresses donated, tuxedos, jewelry, shoes, makeup, hair, everything is, and limos. The whole night is sponsored by the community. So everyone comes and gets ready, and then goes to the prom and dances the night away. So we have a little crew. I have it almost makes me tear up, because I think about the people that have worked with me on that. They are cinematographers and and sound people and editors, and they do it for free. They do it out of the goodness of their hearts, which is really, really nice, because those are freelancers. Their time is their livelihood, and it's just I'm so blessed to have people like that in our community. So it just working as a team like that is neat, and then you see the impact, and everybody loves the night, and they love seeing themselves on video, and it's just so fun to see everybody enjoy themselves and to dress up and be part of that. It's pure joy. So I guess in a way, my pro bono work or community work is selfish, because I get to feel joyful and enjoy other people, or to feel helpful. I think that's neat. It's certainly it's an honor to do. So I like to do it whenever I can.
Of course. Plus, it builds that connection into the community, but also professionally into the team, cohesiveness, working together.
Yeah, I will say, and you probably know this very well, is that video or filmmaking is one of the most collaborative things you can do. It's very different than, I'm going to work as a graphic designer and go on in InDesign and work on my project. But it's just so highly collaborative, and I love that. I love working with people and really talented people. It's very inspiring.
Well, speaking of having an impact, if you had the resources to drill down into and make a difference in one particular area, what would you focus on? I'm
sort of exploring a documentary film right now on PTSD in firefighters and first responders.
Wow.
So that's of interest to me. Yeah, it's not something that's been readily discussed. It's a struggle for people to talk about it, and there's a lot of guilt and shame and not wanting to talk about it. So I think there's some interesting stuff going on there. There's a new center opening up to care for PTSD and firefighters nationally, and I'm looking to explore that. So that's of interest to me. I'm also really dedicated to diversity in the advertising industry. So anything I can do in that space is definitely in my wheelhouse. And then I would say I feel like I'm a strong advocate for the LGBT community too. So I'd love to do some storytelling in that area at some point.
Can you remember a time when you tried something bigger and more scary than anything you'd attempted before, more than the moment called for? And if so, what came out of that?
One of the things that I have always done, despite my fears, is to take on a new challenge. And I have had the opportunity, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I have had the opportunity to take new jobs and new positions, and they've been new roles. Sometimes they're new roles within the same organization, and I've never once said no. So even if there's a glimmer of opportunity there to try something, or it's very scary, I jumped up, raised my hand, and did it because I don't know why. Maybe I'm crazy, but I'm a little restless, and I like to learn new stuff. But I also just never want to be stagnant. So I think when I look back at my career, I mean, that's why I've done a lot of different things, had a lot of different roles, is because I've always said, yeah, let's do it. And fortunately, I mean, that's what, a graphic designer doesn't always end up as a producer, telling stories. But that, when I first started out doing that, that was scary. When you're on the spot or you're in charge of a lot of stuff and a lot of money, that's a lot of pressure. But I love it. And so just doing new things and not being afraid to say yes.
Well, that's huge. It goes back to your point earlier about every day doing something that's uncomfortable, so that over time it develops the habit or the mindset that it's okay to be uncomfortable and just keep trying and stepping forward, so that it's not a big deal when something comes up, but it's a habit, it's a mindset that you've put yourself in to do on a daily basis.
Definitely.
What is something that you believe in the core of your being to be true that most other people probably would not agree with you?
Since we are talking about advertising, I mean, I believe in the truth. And maybe others wouldn't necessarily always agree in that. I don't want to be down on marketing. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I think,
Not at all.
a lot of times we're trying to convince and persuade. And I'm not as jazzed up about convincing and persuading as I am about revealing and elevating the truth. So that would be my answer.
And I love the answer. We're of one heart and mind on many things, I believe. So thank you. Because people get to like what they like, often what succeeds is not really what you may want to succeed, or may not be the idea that gets sold when creative is being presented or done. Do you ever have that come up? And if so, how do you deal with it?
Oh, yeah, sure. All the time. I mean, I think everybody brings a different point of view, and I certainly don't always agree. And they probably, feel the same. But it isn't about, I don't think it's about pushing your own agenda. And you need to learn how to be collaborative and really focus on what matters, not being right or the loudest.
Absolutely. In your drive for excellence in the work you're doing, are there ways that perfectionism creeps in and ever causes any struggles or problems in the process?
Oh my gosh, that's are you kidding? Perfectionism is all around. It's definitely something I struggle with a lot. I have really high expectations on myself. And I think, that drives you. It certainly drives me. It makes me push myself. But it also is probably horribly unfair. And sometimes, I get reminded of that, and sometimes I don't. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to be tough on yourself. But I don't know that you can change, who you are. You can learn to live with it and kind of maybe change your narrative a little bit, but it's always sort of there.
What do you want to be remembered for? What is the legacy that you are in process of leaving?
I guess ultimately just helping people, making a difference in the world. I know that's a big, grand statement, but that's what I try to do on a little level all the time. And I think if you're lucky enough to be able to work with other people in your work, you get to do that, whether it's with clients or interviewees, subjects or the people around you on your team. That's really important to me. I think helping people reach their potential and making a positive difference in our world.
That's not a small thing. Is there someone that you know who is outside of the spotlight but doing something important that's having an impact that the world should know about?
I really enjoy Kat Gordon and Jean Bethany. Now they are in the spotlight, but I think they're awesome and definitely an inspiration to me. Here in Milwaukee, I'm working with Ken Hansen and a group of people in our Greater Together team, which is really focused on how the creative industries can impact racial inequalities in our community.
Yeah.
That's neat to be a part of. Ken has spearheaded that. It's neat to see where that's come over the past couple of years. We're making some nice traction there.
Is there one thought that you'd like to leave with listeners that you believe could make a difference in their lives?
Yes, and hopefully it doesn't sound too kitschy, but just be kind.
That's enough. That's enough. If folks want to connect with you, what places are best for you?
Oh, I think Twitter, probably, at Andrea Nordgren.
Very good, very good. I thank you for your work and your inspiration to folks.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. I really appreciate you asking me. It was fun.
Thanks for listening to The Creator's Journey. If you enjoyed our theme music, the name of the song is You've Got a Home by Krista Wells. The Creator's Journey is published the first and third Sundays of each month, except for July and December. If you enjoyed the show, I would appreciate having you go to iTunes and subscribe. While you're there, if you give us a favorable rating and review, it'll make a huge difference in helping a newcomer easily find it. You can find links to today's guests, the people and books we talked about, and email me with your wonderful thoughts, all at thecreatorsjourney.com. I want to thank Yodelist for sponsoring this episode of The Creator's Journey. Yodelist is an interactive marketing platform for people in the creative world. With a vetted database of contacts from across the industry, Yodelist helps photographers, illustrators, creative directors, designers, producers, stylists, and many others to locate potential clients and gives them the tools to make those connections happen. If you want to find out how Yodelist helps creative people find one another for work, just go to yodelist.com. Today's podcast is also brought to you by audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/TCJ. There are over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.